The ongoing war between the United States and Israel against Iran has led to a sharp increase in gasoline prices across the country. Experts predict that supply chain disruptions and damage to refining facilities could cause these elevated prices to persist for an extended period. Shortly after the conflict began on February 28, 2026, the national average price of gasoline rose from $2.94 per gallon to $3.19 per gallon, reversing a previous decline in prices. Hugh Daigle, a petroleum and geosystems engineering professor at the University of Texas, Austin, warns that significant disruptions in the global oil supply chain could lead to sustained higher prices. According to Clark Williams Derry from the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, the impact on energy prices will depend on the duration of the conflict. Gas Buddy projects a short-term rise to $3.35 per gallon, though the long-term outlook remains uncertain and dependent on the continuation of hostilities. Conflict has caused Brent crude prices to rise by 15% from $70.77 per barrel to $81.73 per barrel, contributing to the spike in gasoline prices. This disruption in oil markets is exacerbated by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, through which about one-fifth of the world's oil passes. Shipping companies have suspended vessel crossings in the strait, leading to increased insurance costs and a reduction in available oil supply. The impact of higher gasoline prices extends beyond just the cost at the pump, potentially leading to higher inflation and prompting the Federal Reserve to consider raising interest rates to curb inflationary pressures. This could stall economic recovery efforts and affect consumer spending. As the conflict continues, the situation remains fluid, with experts monitoring developments closely for further impacts on oil and gasoline prices. Elon Musk defended himself in a San Francisco jury trial Wednesday against accusations of misleading investors during his attempt to back out of the Twitter takeover deal. The case centers on a class action lawsuit filed by Twitter shareholders who claim Musk violated federal securities laws. During his testimony, Musk stated he felt deceived by Twitter's board regarding the number of fake accounts on the platform. He testified that he believed the Delaware Chancery Court judge was biased against him, which influenced his decision to complete the deal at the original sales price. Musk's lawyers advised him he had no chance of prevailing in the Delaware court. This prompts him to proceed with the acquisition, despite earlier attempts to terminate the agreement. The lawsuit, filed by Twitter shareholders who sold the stock between May and October 2022, alleges that Musk's actions drove down the company's stock price and resulted in financial losses for investors. Musk's previous interactions with courts regarding his social media posts and business dealings have set the stage for this legal challenge. As he faces scrutiny over his business practices and financial decisions, and this trial is expected to continue through March 19, with Musk's testimony likely to provide further insights into the intricacies of the Twitter takeover and its aftermath. The Trump administration has formally nominated Kevin Warsh to succeed Jerome Powell as the next Federal Reserve Chair. The nomination was announced on January 30 and officially forwarded to the Senate Banking Committee on March 4. This move comes as the investigation into Jerome Powell's Senate testimony continues to pose potential delays. Warsh, a former Fed official, has been critical of the Fed's low-interest rate policies during the pandemic, which he believes contributed to high inflation. However, the nomination faces significant opposition from Senator Tom Tillis, who is demanding a resolution of the criminal investigation into Powell before moving forward with Warsh's confirmation. Tillis' stance could stall the nomination process and create further partisan conflict over the Fed chair position. This development highlights the political implications surrounding the nomination, as the confirmation process could encounter significant hurdles in the Senate. The nomination's outcome could signal a shift in the Fed's economic policy stance, depending on Warsh's views on interest rates and inflation. The situation remains under close scrutiny as the Senate Banking Committee considers the next steps in the confirmation process. The United States has intensified its military campaign against Iran, targeting deeper into Iranian territory and sinking an Iranian warship off the coast of Sri Lanka. The U.S. Defense Department announced that its strikes have now targeted over 2,000 sites in Iran. This results in over 920 civilian deaths, according to Iran's health ministry. The escalation includes a naval incident where a U.S. submarine fired a torpedo, sinking the Iranian warship Escalates. This marks the first such action since World War II. This new phase of the conflict comes after Iran fired a drone into Nato territory. This prompts a broader U.S. military response. The attacks have drawn international attention, with concerns raised about the growing number of civilian casualties and regional instability. The U.S. military has confirmed 4 reservists were killed in Kuwait during the ongoing conflict. The expansion of the war zone into new territories and the sinking of the Iranian warship highlight the intensifying nature of the conflict between the two nations. This follows previous strikes and military actions by both sides, including Israel's support for U.S. operations against Iran. The situation remains fluid, with ongoing military operations and diplomatic efforts to address the humanitarian impact of the conflict. In Tehran, the death toll has surpassed 1,000 due to ongoing airstrikes by U.S. and Israeli forces. Civilians are evacuating the city in large numbers to avoid further attacks, with both residential areas and government buildings sustaining damage. According to the Red Crescent, Iran's aid organization, the airstrikes have caused significant casualties and displacement. The U.S. and Israel maintain that their targets are primarily military, but civilian infrastructure has also been affected. Iranian officials, however, dismiss claims that their command infrastructure has been severely damaged. Instead, they point to a decentralized military strategy that allows for continued operations despite the ongoing attacks. The conflict has escalated, with Iran responding with increased missile and drone attacks, particularly against separatist groups along its borders. This raises concerns about the potential for a multi-front conflict. Reports suggest that the CIA has contacted Kurdish separatist groups in Iraq about possible involvement against Iran. This is yet to be independently confirmed. The situation in Tehran remains volatile, with evacuations and military actions continuing to unfold. The full impact of these developments is still being assessed. Israel has launched heavy airstrikes on Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, following attacks by Hezbollah, which supports Iran. Nearly 85,000 people have been displaced, and the Israeli military has initiated a ground incursion in southern Lebanon. The conflict began after Hezbollah resumed its military activities, claiming responsibility for targeting Israeli military installations. Hezbollah chief Naim Qassem stated that the group would not surrender despite the escalating conflict's toll on civilians. The Lebanese government, led by Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, has called for Hezbollah to cease all military activities and comply with the law by disarming. However, the calls have been ignored. The renewed conflict comes after a year-and-a-half ceasefire was broken by recent escalations. The situation remains volatile, with civilians bearing the brunt of the attacks. The Lebanese government continues to struggle to address the crisis and calls for an immediate end to the violence. The House Ethics Committee has launched an investigation into Republican Representative Tony Gonzales of Texas following allegations of an affair with a staff member. The investigation will examine claims of sexual misconduct and potential unfair treatment of employees in Gonzales' office. Gonzales, currently in his 3rd term, faces a runoff election in May against Brandon Herrera. The investigation was prompted by allegations that Gonzales had an affair with his staff member, Regina Ann Santos Aviles, who later died by suicide in September 2025. Sources say Gonzales has insisted there are more facts to come, and he has not resigned despite the allegations. The committee's investigation marks a significant escalation in the ongoing scrutiny of Representative Gonzales. With the May runoff election approaching, the outcome of the investigation could have a substantial impact on his re-election bid. Gonzales maintains his innocence and asserts that there will be further information released in the coming days. The situation is still developing, and Representative Gonzales' fate remains uncertain as the investigation continues. The House Oversight Committee has voted to subpoena Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi for a closed-door deposition in the ongoing Jeffrey Epstein investigation. This move comes after a bipartisan majority of the committee supported the subpoena. This makes Bondi the highest-ranking sitting official to be called before the panel. The subpoena was issued on March 4, 2026, in response to the committee's efforts to gather information on Epstein-related matters. Bondi previously testified before another committee about the same issues. The subpoena marks an escalation in the congressional investigation into Epstein's case. The committee has already requested interviews with several other high-profile individuals, including billionaires Bill Gates and Leon Black. The subpoena also follows the recent removal and subsequent review of over 47,000 Epstein-related files, which are expected to be reposted shortly. During the same hearing, Minnesota officials testified that the Trump administration's immigration crackdown has hampered their state's efforts to combat fraud. Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison accused the administration of political retribution, while the committee chair, James Comer, criticized the state for what he termed poor stewardship of federal funds. The subpoena of Bondi and the debate over immigration policies highlight the growing political tensions between federal and state officials. This underscores the broader implications of the Epstein investigation beyond its immediate scope. The situation is still developing, with both federal and state officials expected to continue providing testimony and evidence to the committee in the coming weeks. A new report released by Rhode Island's Attorney General's office has detailed extensive sexual abuse of children by Catholic clergy members over a 70-year period. The report, which covers abuses from the 1950s to 2011, reveals that more than 300 children were sexually assaulted by at least 75 different clergy members. Survivors, like Anne Hagen Webb, who was abused as a child, have long called for greater accountability from the Church beyond simple apologies. According to the report, the Catholic Diocese of Rhode Island kept secret archives detailing abuse allegations and often transferred accused priests to new parishes rather than alerting authorities. This practice, which has been common across many regions, led to a pattern of systemic cover-ups that prioritized church reputation over child safety. The report also highlights the Church's reluctance to fully cooperate with investigators. This suggests that the true extent of abuse may be even greater than documented. In response to the findings, the new Bishop of Providence, Rev. Bruce Lewandowski, issued an apology for past failures to protect victims and emphasized the Church's commitment to new reporting systems aimed at preventing future abuses. However, survivors like Anne Hagen Webb remain skeptical of these measures, calling for stricter accountability and transparency from the Church. The release of this report is part of a broader pattern of similar investigations and reports across the United States and globally, focusing on systemic failures to address clergy sexual abuse and protect children. As this situation continues to unfold, it may lead to renewed calls for legal actions and policy changes to ensure better protection for future generations. A U.S. submarine has sunk an Iranian warship off the coast of Sri Lanka. This results in the recovery of 87 bodies and the rescue of 32 survivors. The incident, which occurred in international waters, involved the Escalates, one of Iran's newest and heavily armed warships that had been sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department in February 2023. The sinking is part of a broader military operation aimed at weakening Iran's naval capabilities. As stated by U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the Escalates was carrying 180 people when it was hit by a torpedo fired from the American submarine. Following the distress signal from the Iranian vessel, Sri Lanka's Navy launched a rescue mission, but found only oil patches and life rafts at the site, with numerous people floating in the water. The attack underscores the ongoing geopolitical tensions between the United States and Iran, with Iran's Navy experiencing significant losses in recent military engagements. The incident highlights the risks posed to vessels operating in international waters, as demonstrated by the unprecedented use of a submarine to target a warship. The situation is still developing, with officials from both countries evaluating the implications of the incident. President Donald Trump hosted a gathering at the White House today, inviting tech giants including Google, Microsoft, Amazon to sign a pledge aimed at preventing utility bill increases due to the electricity consumption of AI data centers. The event took place on March 4, 2026. As part of Trump's efforts to address public concerns over rising electricity costs and environmental impacts linked to the growth of artificial intelligence. The companies committed to developing independent power generation for their data centers, which are major consumers of electricity. The pledge includes building or purchasing new power sources and negotiating separate rate structures with utilities. This move comes as electricity prices have risen by 6.3% over the past year, according to the Labor Department's Consumer Price Index. The event highlights growing public and political scrutiny of data centers in various states, with concerns about rising electricity prices and environmental impacts leading to opposition in places like Georgia, Virginia, and New Jersey. Energy experts, however, have questioned the enforceability and effectiveness of the tech companies' voluntary commitments. Jill Tauber of Earth Justice emphasized the need for strong regulatory policies to mitigate the impacts of data centers beyond voluntary pledges. The president has sought to position the U.S. as a leader in AI while addressing public worries about electricity costs and environmental impacts. The pledge is part of a broader effort to support the development of AI while ensuring that the economic and environmental costs do not disproportionately affect American households. The House Oversight Committee has voted to subpoena Florida's Attorney General Pam Bondi to answer questions about the Justice Department's handling of files related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. The move, supported by 5 Republicans and Democrats, reflects ongoing frustration with the release and redaction of documents connected to the sex trafficking investigation. The subpoena, proposed by GOP Representative Nancy Mace, was approved on Wednesday in Washington, D.C. Critics argue that Bondi's approach to releasing the files has not been transparent enough, leading to calls for the complete, unredacted release of all documents. Bondi has defended the Justice Department's handling, stating that staff worked diligently within the time frame set by legislation. This development underscores the political and legal tension surrounding the Epstein files, with both parties involved in a debate over transparency and accountability. Democrats see the move as a step towards ensuring that the American people receive full access to the information related to the Epstein case. Republicans, meanwhile, have been particularly vocal about their demand for more comprehensive disclosure. The situation remains in flux, with the Justice Department yet to comment on the subpoena. Officials are expected to provide further details and next steps in the coming days. Spain has denied collaborating with the United States on military operations in the Middle East, contradicting recent statements from the White House. The diplomatic spat intensified on Wednesday as both sides exchanged contradictory claims regarding the use of Spanish military bases. Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Albares and Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez reaffirmed their opposition to using Spanish military bases for any U.S. military operations in Iran. The Spanish government's stance is consistent with its long-standing position against military intervention in the Middle East without UN approval. In a press conference on Wednesday, Albares stated unequivocally that Spain had not changed its position and would not cooperate with the U.S. in any operations that it deemed inconsistent with international law. The minister's comments came shortly after White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt suggested that Spain had agreed to cooperate with the U.S. military. The disagreement highlights growing tensions between the U.S. and Spain over military intervention in Iran, particularly in light of recent U.S. military strikes. Spanish Prime Minister Sánchez warned against actions that could endanger global stability and reiterated Spain's commitment to maintaining diplomatic and legal integrity. The situation remains tense, with ongoing discussions about the potential implications for trade and diplomatic relations between the two nations. Officials from both sides are expected to continue negotiations to resolve the dispute.